welcome everyone for this week's Grayleaf Tech Talk. With me today is a special guest, Jimmie Butler, author of the book Pursuing Timeless Agility, The Path to Lasting Agile Transformation. Welcome, Jimmie.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, here at Grayleaf, we're not just project managers and software developers. We're first and foremost, we're consultants, we're problem solvers. And our clients have remarked several times about how they love the way our projects are managed, and I really have become a believer that our success really comes down to having an agile mindset in our company. And I remember, Jimmie, you and I used to sit across from each other at a very high-profile government contract. We were consultants and project managers there. And we would often discuss agile and the things that people maybe misunderstood about it, what it was good at, what it wasn't good at. And so and that really, I think, brings up your book, Jimmie, and wanted to just kind of start off with that. Jimmie, tell us a little bit about why you wrote Timeless Agility.
Yeah, it's an interesting story there. It's like, why would anybody go off and write a book, right? I mean, it's a lot of work. And I know we were doing things, at our government client together. And, I just realized that I was coaching and I was driving toward, different ways of working. And for one, I wanted to document what we were doing. And I wanted to get the stuff that was in my head out. And so half of it was really for my own sake of, how do I really convey what it is that I'm really coaching here? Because I'm not necessarily, tied up into the specific do this, and do it that way, but it's more around those values and principles and other concepts and why behind things. And so I wanted to just kind of try to articulate what was in my head and what I was coaching on a day-to-day basis, and then see if that resonated with people. It's kind of that jumping point of, if this book and what's in it resonates with you, then even professionally, me on your team would be a good fit. And it's almost like, if you don't like what the book says, then you definitely don't want to call me, right? because that's the way I'm going to approach things. And so it turned into just that kind of process, and I would start it and then get sidetracked into doing some other things and then started it back up again. And so I finally got it done and felt pretty good with it. And the interesting thing is that I got to get a lot of feedback and review from the clients of where we were working from as well to help shape that, which, is kind of part of the thing too, is just to provide something that could help folks understand what it is they really should be focused on and why, and to kind of go against some of that common wisdom that was out there. See, that was the other thing that was bothering me, was there's an industry out there, and I call it the certification economy, because there's a lot of money in pushing different certifications. So, and I'm not saying that's all bad, but I think sometimes people get lost in the certification process or the specific things you do that they either forget about or even never learn. Why am I doing this, and why am I doing it this way, and what am I really trying to achieve by going agile or doing agile? And in parts of the book there where I talk about, is agile even fit for purpose, right? Everybody thinks, well, I just need to do agile. Maybe not, but why, right? Why do you want to do that? And so I wanted to try to address some of those concerns that were going on across the industry, for those that would resonate for. So,
in your book, you talk about agile, and then we sometimes we'll talk about the agile mindset. So, what is the difference between the two, would you say?
A lot of people know, and maybe not everybody knows, but there's the Agile Manifesto that came out some time back that really set the stage for driving this agile movement, a set of values and principles. And, when you look at them, they don't tell you exactly how to do things. They tell you some things you need to do and care about. And to me, that's more of a mindset, of an approach to things. And then along the way, folks said, well, I can live that out by doing these specific practices, these methodologies, these frameworks. And so what Agile has become, what Agile I think is still predominantly today, is these things people do, very specific frameworks, methodologies, you follow these practices. But to me, Agile is a state of mind. It's a way of working. It's rooted in the why, not so much like the what and the how is important, but why you do it's more important, right? And I have that tagline, right? So what you do matters, but why you do it matters more. If you understand why you're doing something, a lot of times the things that we say that are Agile, the short feedback cycles, the quick deliveries, the collaboration, all those things help support you getting to that next right thing. I think every organization, before the term Agile really ever was a thing, right? Every organization's always wanted to do the next right thing, right? I would think, right? They want to do what the most valuable thing is. Identifying what that is, that's one problem, and I'm getting more into that area now as I get more into strategy with my career. But how do you do that? And that's what's changed all along the time. People say, well, no, what we need to do is we need to do this process, and we need to do that process, and this certification will help us do it, and this framework will help us do it. That stuff's evolving. It evolves all the time. And so that's really the root of like, what's timeless agility? I mean, I looked at it like, timeless agility is getting to that place where the way you think about what you do, why you do it, what's really driving that is always going to be there. That's timeless. Work off those timeless principles. What you do, how you do it, you're going to change those things over time as you learn what works, doesn't work, the next paradigm shift comes, the next idea comes, people go from Scrum to Kanban to SAFe. They're all trying different ways to do what everybody really wants to do. How do I discover and deliver the next right thing? How do I continuously get better at doing that? That's what it's all about. And so that's the difference to me. It's whether you're focused on the specific things you do, or you're really focused on why you do it in the first place, and let everything else evolve off of that.
So that also kind of is related to this idea, and you talk about it, about why it's a good thing to fail fast. Now, that might sound contradictory, right? Because I mean, we're geared to always, success, and let's let that be the driving force. But oftentimes, failing fast is the fastest way to make sure that we're on the right path. And so, we have clients sometimes that will talk to us, and they'll have a lot of ideas, and inevitably, right, some of these ideas are going to have less value than others, and you don't really know until you start doing them. So talk a little bit about what failing fast really means to you, and why it's so important in a project to have that idea in place.
Yeah, I mean, initially nobody wants to fail at anything, right? And we've been trained our whole lives that failure is not a good thing, right? Failure is not an option, and we're afraid to fail. And so we've learned that we just need to really do the due diligence to make sure that what we're doing is the right thing and we get it right the first time, right? Well, the problem with that is we spend a lot of time doing things that are going to not be the right things in the first place, because we don't really know a lot of things, right? We think we know a lot of things. We think we know what the next right thing is, but really they're just assumptions, and those assumptions need to be validated. The quicker you can validate or disprove an idea, the quicker you can get to the right solution. I use a phrase that really catches people off guard a lot of times, and that's, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. And I'm like, well, why would you want to do anything poorly? Well, no, you don't. But the thing is, if something's important enough, then it's important enough to get started on, so that you can start experimenting and testing out ideas and assumptions, so you can figure out what works and doesn't work to help you get to the next right thing. So in the beginning, you're going to test things out that may not work. And you might call that's poorly. It didn't work, it failed. So what? I learned pretty quick that this is going to be a problem and I can work around it. If I get so hung up on being afraid to fail and I try to get it all right up front, I'm going to spend a lot of time getting to a place where in the end, I'm going to deliver something that still might not work, might not be the right thing. And I just wasted a lot of time learning that. So it's all about those quick feedback cycles. It's not so much about wanting to fail, but not being afraid the fact that what you put forward won't be the thing that is the right thing, or it won't work the way you thought it was. And the quicker you can learn that, the better. So you want to move that risk up forward. You know, and I like to look at, like, try to identify what the riskiest things are, the most uncertain things, and start trying to validate those things early so you don't learn about them when it's way too late.
And that's an organizational thing too, right? Because the organization has to kind of embrace this idea that, okay, you know, maybe going down the wrong path for a short period of time, that's got to be okay. So there has to be a little bit of tolerance of this risk, and a tolerance of maybe exploring the path a little bit, which, you know, that on an organizational level, right? So the Agile mindset, would you agree, has to kind of go beyond a team, and, you know, can even embrace organizations? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it has to be from top to bottom. You know, there's this notion, a lot of times there's this notion that Agile really is just a development team thing, right? People who code software are the ones who do this Agile stuff, right? And then when it's looked at from that perspective, it really becomes all about the practices, processes, and all the things that they do. They use this tool, they have this cadence, they do these ceremonies, they do all these things because that's what Agile is, and it's for a development team. But an organization can't achieve enterprise-wide agility if that's all Agile is to them, right? So outside of that team, hopefully they're trying to align with some priority, some strategic objective. The ability to identify those things and to be able to, again, even with strategic objectives, right? You have to figure out what's going to move the needle, right? I have a target I'm trying to reach as an enterprise. There are things that I think will help me reach my target measures. So I try things, and I realized, well, that didn't really move the needle very far. I need to try something else. So the whole mentality of that iterative process and that learning cycle has to go all the way up from, you know, the CEO all the way throughout the organization, because everybody has to make value-based decisions. And we all are working from assumptions. I don't care how smart you think you are, and and no doubt you know things. The more experienced a person is, the more they know from experience. But there's a lot of things that they're good assumptions, but still they're just assumptions that need to be validated. At every level of the organization, in every department, that mindset of quick learning cycles, being able to pivot, and having that process is a part of it to help you with the cadences of developing those quick feedback cycles. Applies everywhere.
You know, it just reminds me, you know, oftentimes we'll be working with a client, especially early on, and they'll ask questions like, okay, well, how much will this cost, right? Or they'll say, how long will this take? This idea I have, we'll be in our first meeting, right? And, you know, it's, right, I mean, essentially, right, the answer is, we don't know. And that is really at the core of this, is to help a client understand and help organizations understand that the best way to start figuring this out is to start doing it and to start working together. Now that takes a little bit of trust, right? Because you know, sometimes that the vibe you give off can be, hey, just, you know, how much money do you have? And then that's how much this is going to cost.
Right.
And it's not that at all, right? What we're trying to do is eliminate risk very early, and by starting an engagement at the point in time when we know the least, but also they have invested the least amount. We're going to go down this and explore this together. And at any point, of course, they can stop, right? But oftentimes the very process itself is what helps them understand, oh, this is how this works. And look at the stuff, look how we use the term maximize the work not done, right? You start moving things off that you realize, you know what, this thing we thought we needed, don't need it. So you get rid of that, you maximize the work not done. You're failing early, so you're identifying those things.
Yeah, you know, John, that is that's a tough conversation to have, you know, with clients who want to know how much something costs. And I get that, you know. I mean, with anything else that I do, you know, have somebody come fix my fence, you know, what's it going to cost, right? I don't want them to say I don't know, right? I mean, but but there's a difference between something that's very routine, repetitive, and known versus software development, which is the complete opposite, you know. And folks can say, well, sure, you know how to code stuff, right? You do it every day, right? Yes, but not every problem's the same. Not every technology path you take's the same. And also, the software and really technology in a lot of ways is people don't always know what they want for sure until they see it and touch it, play with it, and see how it resolves a problem or takes advantage of some opportunity, right? We have these ideas of we need to be able to do this. And it's that uncertainty that's going to create, well, we could go this path, right? Oh, I want to add this, I want to add that, right? Trying to figure out all that stuff up front doesn't work. We've proven that, and that's not even a topic for debate anymore, right? Trying to identify every nuance of everything you think you want up front so you can go through and just build it to be done, that doesn't work. I've never seen it work that well. And even then, do people finish on time and on budget, right? Because how do you predict how much some of these things are going to cost, right? So with Agile comes along and it tries to shake this whole thing up, and it really scares a lot of people about, well, I can't just have an open checkbook. No, you can't. So how much are you willing to invest in this idea? Set a budget, set a time frame, and see what you can get done. Teams also need time to acclimate and get up to speed and find a good cadence of working together, right? Accommodate for that, but then evaluate. Am I getting good value for the time and money I'm spending? Is the product continuing to increase in the way I want it to? And am I getting to a better product because I'm iteratively involved along the way and I can get the feedback from customers or whoever's using it? What's the satisfaction there? And you continue to invest in a product until it's no longer valuable, right? You reach the law of diminishing returns, and then you move on to the next thing, right? So as long as you're getting value, you continue to invest in it. But you can always control your budget. You can always control your timeline because you can set it. It's what you're going to get accomplished in that time frame that's hard to predict because we're going to feel it out as we go. But yeah, tough pill to swallow for folks until they've experienced the benefits of it and how it's produced better products, and that it actually can help them get a better sense of control over their budgets, timelines, and what they can get out the door. And you have to make trade-off decisions. You know, there's not too many things that you can predict from end to end exactly how it's going to work unless it's a manufacturing line. You know, I went whitewater rafting recently, John, and I know I posted this little story on LinkedIn a little bit, right? And I was like, so what's the parallels here between, you know, the Agile approach and strategy and things like that? And, you know, for the guides that take people down this river, they do it all the time. They could pretty much, they know exactly where things are and what we need to do when we get to certain spots and pretty much how much time it's going to take to get there, whatever. But not every trip's the same. You know, we were early in our trip, we're supposed to go down this little 8-foot waterfall, and it's a narrow entrance to it. It was at an angle, and the outfit that I went with is, I think what I heard was the only one out of 23 outfits that's even allowed to do this part of the river. So great, you know, so we're trying to do it, and we get stuck on a rock ledge hanging off the edge of this thing, and we're stuck. Now, nobody could have foreseen that to happen, right? Maybe they knew that was a possibility or whatever, but we had to deal with that, right? And so all the plans are out the window. We have to deal with that. What are we going to do with it? We can't just rock the boat and go down it because we'll capsize and stuff. And so we had to come up with a plan to get out of this mess, which ended up being us having to one by one jump off the thing into the water and get rescued and regroup and all that kind of stuff, right? But that took time. So there were certainly other things we wanted to do in our trip that we had to scrap, right? Because we had to deal with this, because that was the next right thing. That was the thing we had to deal with. We dealt with it. It took some time. We got through it. We regrouped, but we had to drop something out, right? But if we wanted to stick to scope, well, we would have got back at nighttime, right? So we would have been, you know, not on schedule, right? Things like that. So no matter what it is you're looking at, can you really predict? No. So that's why we like that approach of the next right thing, and using the feedback in the environment to see where we go next. And we could have at any time pulled out of that river if we thought it wasn't the right way to go. That's right.
I stole this from you, I think. But
well, I didn't draw it, but I stole it somewhere if
yeah,
you got it from me.
yeah, it's all Agile.
Right.
But I like this illustration a lot because I think it really gets to the core of this whole discussion, this part of it, right? Where, we have a plan. Yeah, we got this. Okay, we think we want this, right? And okay, that's just going to be. It's a little uphill grade, but yeah, it's easy, right? Why can't you just tell me how much it's going to cost or how long it's going to take? But in reality, it's much more complicated than that. And not only are there obstacles that you can't predict and foresee, but also maybe what you want is not what you need. So there has to be a process to figure that out. And because if you just go to you can basically, I could throw a stone out my window right now and probably hit a software developer, right, at random. But what is so important, is not just doing what the client wants. It's more about figuring out what do you need as helping the client figure out what do they need. And we have a lot of examples of that, but I love this illustration because it really points out, first of all, the nature of the unpredictability of what we do, and also the fact that, hey, maybe we need to set the goalpost somewhere else, and that's going to obviously maximize the work not done. It reduces cost, and just makes the project a lot easier.
Absolutely.
What do you like most about your job, Jimmy?
Well, as a general sense, I've always liked to get people to think about things differently. I'm one of those folks that goes against the common wisdom a lot of times, and not to say that there aren't great best practices and some good common wisdom out there, but sometimes I think it's good to just kind of look at things a little bit differently. And so with a lot of things that I write or I post or in the way I coach, I try to use those types of ways to just get people, even taking people away from technology sometimes. Well, think about, in this non-technical situation, this approach, and then now apply it back. I like looking at, I just like driving value, right? I'm not so much one that likes to get caught up in the details of the technicalities of work and stuff. I mean, sure, I got a lot of background in process development and driving process change and things like that, but I also like to do it more so from a perspective of what's the organization really trying to accomplish, and what can we put in place to do that, and what's the next right thing as an organization, as a process within a team that we should take on right now, and just trying to that continuous improvement. Maybe that's what it really is, right? It's like I'm driven by this continuous improvement mindset in a sense too, right? I've always liked to learn about things and to just drive to better ways of working. Because if I was in a situation where I was just doing the same thing the same way all the time, it wouldn't work. Me, that's not going to work, right? I can't sit still like that. I got to constantly be thinking about how to drive something better. And so, I've done that with coaching, from an agile product team perspective. That was fun. Today, I'm working in an organization that continues to support government clients, but more at a strategic level. I'm a strategic management consultant more so now than, say, an agile coach, where I'm now helping the organization think about, strategic plans and finding that a lot of people don't do them very well either. So I've came up with a framework around strategic management, trying to define better strategic plans and a process for that, but more importantly, execution. Right? Our company is going to release a white paper here shortly that I mostly authored it, and title 90% of organizations fail to execute strategy. Right? It's a white paper to help you from being a statistic. That's an alarming statistic, right? Most companies fail to execute strategy. Why is that? Right? Because we have these ideas, and then we get mired in the day to day, and we don't really have a plan to execute. And so I really enjoy being in that space where it's not just about what should you be doing, why you should be doing it, but yeah, what can you do as an enterprise to rally around those strategic objectives and execute, and through down to the smallest teams, aligning all the way back through the organization. You know, in some of our previous engagements, you know, we kind of had a narrow focus of, well, this is the product team, and we're gonna do the work for this product, and other people were concerned about whether or not we were aligned with the organization. So I enjoy taking that step back and helping to bring that alignment, because I think it's a huge challenge. I like challenges, so that's what drives me, you know.
You've always been good at that, Jimmy. And, you know, I remember many times we would talk, and, you know, we would talk about, you know, we would often talk about, okay, you know, what is the next best right thing to do? And of course, kind of, you know, the cousin of that question is, what problem are we trying to solve? And then you know, you would ask another question, right? Peel the onion back even further and say, well, how do you know that's the right problem? And I think it's it's the answers. I remember someone said one time, and I never forgot it, but you know, the questions or the answers you seek are always in the questions you ask. Asking good questions is the art. It's less about the answer, it's more about the question. And how do you know if you're asking the right question? So as a management
Yeah,
consultant, that's
absolutely.
what you do, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, well, I've always asked questions, right? I'm a pain in the rear end for a lot of people, right? You know that from our last gig together,
I
right?
do. I do.
You know, I drill into those questions. So yeah, so like, you know, especially in software development in our world right now, you know, we're presented with a lot of solutions, right? Here, we need to go do this, now go do that, right? And so, yeah, what problem are we trying to solve with that solution? How do you know that's the right problem to solve to begin with, right? So it's one thing to know what problem are you trying to solve. It's another thing to identify, is it the right problem to solve? I like to use this 5 whys approach, where it's really simple. It's like, you know, we need to do this. Okay, well, why do you need to do this? Right? And then you get an answer back. Okay, well, then why do you need to do that? Or why is that the situation, right? So it's just asking why a couple times, by peeling back the onion. And ultimately, you're going to get to a much different problem to solve, which is going to lead you to a much different solution to that problem, right? Because a lot of times I find that the initial problem and solution is not the right one to solve, and it won't give you the right results you have. And it's all perspective. You know, there's a number of ways that I try to get people to see through this a little bit, you know, just thinking about things differently. And, you know, and one of them is a question I'll ask folks about, you know, why do cars have brakes, right? So I find that most people are like, well, I mean, cars have brakes so you can stop the car, right? Yeah, that's a pretty good solution, I guess. You need to be able to stop the car, right? And so why do you want to stop the car? Well, so I don't hit stuff, right? So it sounds like a great solution to a great problem. But what if the real benefit to brakes was that it actually allowed you to go faster, right? So knowing that you can slow down and stop the car, you now have more confidence to go faster. And by being able to go faster, well, you can go further in a shorter period of time. So you can open up cities, states. And so now the benefit's not just so much that I keep from hitting cars, but I can open up a whole new world of possibilities, because I can connect better because I can go faster, right? So part of what problem are you trying to solve, or opportunity are you trying to seek, is uncovering enough layers to really find the bigger benefit. You know, we probably don't have time here on this call, but it's in I lay it out in the book, where I walk through this scenario of Carmelo Anthony and the NBA, and some various statistics along the way that would lead you to conclusions, right? And so some of the earlier data would say, we need to get Carmelo off the team. It's horrible. Teams losing more games when he plays than they win and all that. But I walk through this process of really understanding the context behind the data and peeling back the onions to get to a better solution. And so, again, I like to use things that are not always technology related to do that, but it's very important, I think, that folks really take the time to just peel back that onion a bit, make sure you're solving the right problem for the right reasons. Same thing could go, John, to I want to do Agile. Why? Well, because we want to get things out the door faster. That's great. Why? Why do you want to deliver faster? Well, what I hear a lot of times is so I can burn through my backlog and show progress and, and do more in less time and all that stuff. Why? Why do you want to do that? If you're delivering the wrong things, who cares how fast you're doing it, right? So for me, the right why is, well, I want to have shorter feedback cycles so I can learn faster, so I can figure out what the next right thing is sooner, so I can deliver a better product. That's what Agile is all about, John. That's the value and the benefit of what Agile brings. That's what those short cycles bring, whether you're doing it in a Kanban or Scrum approach or whatever you do to shorten the feedback loop so that you can get the information you need to deliver the next right thing to produce a better product. What you do, how you do it's a little bit not as important as the why, right? You're not doing it because you want to burn through your backlog. Most of the things in your backlog could be the wrong things. They could be solving the wrong problems, right?
Yeah,
So it's all about the why.
It's the old joke that's, the doctor comes out of the operating room, right? And he says, he's got his hands, the operation was a success. The patient, however, died. So, it's how you measure success is important. So Agile doesn't promise it's going to be cheaper. It doesn't say it's going to be faster. What it does promise is better. And if it's done right, there should be a better product at the end of it. So Jimmy, we are about out of time, but I do want to cover one more thing. And COVID-19 is on everybody's mind, and everyone is really figuring out how to best adapt to this. And we have a pretty broad range of people that feel like, well, this thing's all overblown. Some people are very concerned. But how do you feel like an agile mindset might help organizations kind of figure out how to kind of navigate these waters of COVID-19?
Well, you hit me with a tough one there, didn't you?
Let me share. Go ahead. You first.
Yeah, go ahead, please. You please give me some more context. Anytime I can get more context.
So a lot of times, right? Organizations have found that we talked earlier in our conversation about experimenting and trying things out in a small way and figuring out failing fast, right? And I think in the context of COVID, right, it's a forced reality. People were forced to do this. For example, now we have to be remote, right? And Jimmie, before our meeting, we were chatting a little bit about it dispelled myths that were out there that, people, you can't have a remote workforce and get the job done. That was kind of the prevailing thought. People are going to goof off and they're not going to be productive. And here we've realized, and I think organizations have realized, because they've been forced to use this, empirical approach, they've realized that, wow, people are just as productive, if not more productive than they were in the office. Now, I'm not saying there's not trade-offs and, there's some benefits of being in person, but I feel like the COVID-19 has almost been a kind of a forced, agile, empirical cycle of learning. And the people are starting to, and that's a good example of how some myths are being dispelled. Wrong thinking now has been corrected. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I think what I have found is that a lot of people who maybe have not been that keen on having a lot of remote work before are realizing that productivity hasn't dropped. And in fact, it's probably, we're doing better work. I don't want to say productivity's increased because it's not about how much stuff you do. It's about the quality of the work you do. And our team's still able to collaborate and work together. And I think folks are finding out that, yeah, they are. I mean, professional people find ways to get things done. And an interesting thing here is, there are those organizations that have always been trying to become remote ready, right? And so this wasn't that big of a shift for them. But for a lot of organizations, it just really wasn't a proactive thing to do. And so COVID forced them to have to shift gears a little bit and rethink how they work. And it's not always a bad thing to be forced into changing how you work. The key is are you as an organization flexible enough to be able to pivot? Do you have the mindset? Are you working off of that mindset that allows you to be able to see what the environment's giving you, what the feedback is, or whatever that is, and be able to do something with it that becomes your next right thing for your organization and allows you to go in a different direction? That's the key to timeless agility, is that you're developing from top to bottom this way of thinking that allows you to adjust and adapt to whatever comes your way. Yes, you plan, you have strategies, and I'm a strategic management consultant. I still believe in strategic plans, but it fits perfectly with working from an agile perspective because we revisit and we look at those plans on a constant basis, and we take the feedback and the data so we can make better data-driven decisions, because we don't sit on strategic plans for 3 years or 5 years. We adjust them as needed, right? And so that's timeless agility. That's not being tied to specific frameworks or ways of working or rigidity. It's the values, principles, concepts. It's an approach to work that works regardless of what the industries throw at you, what the certifications are out there, that allows you to make up your own ways if you want to, because it's all based on that ability to pivot, do the next right thing. And it's always about, I came up with a sentence one time, John. I wanted to summarize everything that I thought Agile was, or everything that I thought really mattered. And it's to continuously find better ways to discover and deliver the next right thing sooner. That's what everybody, I think, wants. And whatever you do to do that leads you down the path of agility and ultimately timeless agility, because it will always be something you can drive the organization from.
Well, Jimmy, that was a great discussion. Unfortunately, our time is up. Feel free to check out Jimmie's site, timelessagility.com. You can see the book. You can order a copy of it. I highly recommend it. If you want to talk about, Agile and your company, or not Agile, but just your company and helping out, maybe some challenges you're facing, feel free to reach out to Grayleaf. We're always glad to chat about this as well. Our site is gograyleaf.com, GRAYLEAF, gograyleaf.com, and we'll be glad to chat. So Jimmie, thanks again for being on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate it, John. And I just want to, one more selfish plug on that. If folks would go to the website, you can sign up for a weekly email cadence of just thoughts, right, of things that help people think about things differently. There's about a year's worth of emails that will come out on a weekly basis. So I encourage folks to do that too if they want to be challenged in how they think about things. Oh, and you've got the printout, right?
Highly recommend Timeless Insights Volume 1, Transforming Mindsets, because mindset transcends methodology. So I've got a copy here, and I look at it. It often is great to kind of have on my desk next to me as I'm thinking through things. So thank you, Jimmie.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.